This is going to be your guide to a double staff class in New World Aeternum. So using the life staff and the fire staff, let's go and break that down, starting off with the attributes, because it's going to scale into how you want the weapons. Mostly, you just need to make it to 200 intelligence, 10 mana on critical hit. Once you hit that point, fire staff is like built around crazy critting. You just don't run out of mana and you're free to do whatever you want. Touch your focus is alright, because that incoming healing is going to be powerful. And then I just like going Constitution, that way you don't get KO'd by everything, and then you eat some food, you go to the extra bonuses, good to go. Okay, that last part wasn't accurate because the game tooltips lie, but it doesn't invalidate the guide, and it's really good to talk about if you're trying to go for a build like this. So my original idea was, wait a second, we just put in an intelligence gem, which is convenient with Ruby, into life staff, which gives us more damage if we have higher intelligence. Even though it's scaling of like 75%, it says more weapon damage when we have a Ruby slotted in. Sounds great. More weapon damage equals more healing, because that's what the tooltip says. 16% weapon damage. This is wrong. It's the damage based off of your focus. So using an intelligence gem does nothing, which is why I was like, oh, we can still find healing here by just doing some conversion. Okay, so building this out is going to get complicated. I have the Constitution food because the focus food is stupid expensive, which means we're going to like try to find breakpoints just on raw focus, where it's like, okay, cool. We have 150 focus. That's what we want. And then intelligence, let's see what happens, like how we try to max that out. Okay, great. This kind of looks terrible. Now we can get some points back, like if we have perfectly optimized gear. It also means our Constitution is gonna be a little weak, so let's see if we can salvage that a little bit. And I don't think the critical damage modifier really matters for Constitution. And if we can actually like do other things and pull that under 100, so maybe you actually do need focus or intelligence food. The game is not set in stone. Reminder, this is a guide. You don't have to do everything exactly how I say it, and if your experience varies a little bit, like this kind of like set you up. You're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, kind of want to do this, where's a good starting point? Here you go. But if your experience differs in some kind of way, your gear is going to be different, your scenarios are going to be different, your playstyle is going to be different, what you want out of the game is going to be different, so you can adjust in that way. Losing that much Constitution kind of hurts your health, but I mean, depending on your level, like you're already super good anyways. And then we can just pretend we have 350 intelligence, 102 Constitution, 150 focus, and we didn't break our dexterity. So let's talk about the fire staff. I like running Pillar Fire, Incinerate, and Flamethrower. You can disagree on the Incinerate and Pillar Fire and run Meteor Shower or Fireball, but Flamethrower is a must. And we can start with Fire Staff perks to see where you want to take your build. I don't really care for Accelerating Flamethrower. It's not damage. You're running Fire Staff. You're supposed to be about the damage. Empowering Incinerate. 20% more damage to targets with a burn if on equipment, but if it's on the weapon, then you can have 40% more damage. I'd rather have the Refreshing Pillar of Fire in this case, because like, oh, you get 21% cooldown per hit. So that's just 40% because you're going to be hitting multiple enemies with it, and it works really well into comboing. But then this is where like, oh, do I want to run Meteor Shower because you gain Empower, and then that keeps on stacking and it goes with the hits. And then Fireball Impact deals more damage. If you're running Fireball instead of Pillar of Fire, well then you put this on your weapon and you do crazy damage, and it's a really strong opener to just get plus 60%. Also, real quick before I go back to the weapon tree, gotta shout out G Fuel. It's the only thing keeping me alive through making all these videos, all these guides, all this playing. If you're a gamer, you need caffeine, you need G Fuel's Focus Complex to do your best. Use code RELISIFY for 20% off your G Fuel order. All kinds of really cool collabs and promos and flavors. I love Dream Demon Hack and Slash. Goth GF is pretty good, and I saw like, oh, this is a new one. What's that? Cherry Green Apple. Sounds great. They're going to send it to me, and I'm going to love it. And there's also a Guilty Gear collab. Yeah, check out G Fuel. Let's get back to the guide. So we can also see what we have here. Fireball applies a stack of Smolder on targets, and then we have the restoring mana. So I mean, like, we don't get crazy benefits here. Whereas if we have Incinerate, we eventually do the Incinerate damage. Like, we heal for Incinerate damage, and then we also have an Empower. So, I mean, there's 15% Empower right there. Now, one thing I don't like about Meteor Shower is the cast time, but eventually you can get Grit on Meteor Shower, so the problem of getting staggered out of the cast goes away. And then hitting a target inside Meteor Shower with attacks inflicts Smolder. That's like extra steps to get the Smolder, and then mana on hit. But again, like Flamethrower, 200 intelligence, you don't need anything else. Going through some of the other stuff, a lot of it is just like attack procs, but you just want to be doing ability casts and then going to your secondary, in this case Life Staff. But Fire Staff in general, like, yeah, go to secondary or just stay on Life Staff and destroy everything. Flare is interesting though, because it then combos into the other tree with Backdraft. Hitting a target that has 5 stacks of Smolder with a heavy attack consumes the stacks on the target, and then an explosion is triggered, dealing weapon damage. So if you actually like splash that onto multiple, things go crazy pretty quick. And there's a lot of ways of getting Smolder onto a target, so critical hits. Hey, we're doing those. You can make the Smolder last longer. You can gain Fortify while enemies have Smolder and all kinds of other stuff. And then, like, gets pretty cool when hitting a target within 4 meters of the player. You get a Field of Fire doing 20% weapon damage in a radius. And then, yeah, like, all the effects are just crazy AoE big burn. You are actually living a pretty good Pyromancer fantasy inside of the Fire Staff build. So yeah, with the last 5 points, you want to go Flare, Backdraft, Flame Out, and then I like the Fortify just because, and then putting in Kindle is really nice, because even though you want to have like a lot of Smolder effects, you can see the Smolder above the health bar of your enemies, and after you just like combo out and do hits and stuff, you look, it's like, oh, they're at 5. And it's not like 5 per Smolder. It's not like, oh, my crits can be 5 Smolder, and then I get 5 more Smolder for having Flamethrower of my other effects. No, all Smolder is cumulative, so if you ever just like hit enemies and you're like, oh, they're already at 5 Smolder stacks, you don't need to gain more through critting, even if you're going to be like backdrafting and stuff like that. And then we kind of can't give up anything else on the other tree, because like, oh, just free 5% Empower, and then crit chance, and then crit damage. All this is good. Actually, no, you can't get rid of the Arson's Advantage, because then that doesn't let you into the next one, unless you go Fireball. Now let's talk about Life Staff. This is going to be a PvE build with solo focus, but it's also good to have the Life Staff because it means like people are going to recruit you more for expeditions, because everyone needs a healer, and your healing is going to at least look competent so someone can pick you out. And then you pretty much like drop off your spells, and then you become a 5th DPS, and it's like, okay, cool, that works out. I like Orb of Protection, Beacon, and Sacred Ground. Fortifying Sacred Ground, that's a perk. You just gotta have it. And then there's other ways to build out the Life Staff if you want to be just like a dedicated healer, but that's going to be in its own individual Life Staff guide. So I'm going to be doing guides on individual weapons as well as the weapon combos like this video. And if you become a member, you get early access to all of that. So it's only $2 for my channel, and you get Discord access, and also all of my other guides as they're made, because I schedule them for members first. A little bit of a plug, drink G Fuel, all that fun stuff. But what I like about this is that there's no cast time. To do Divine Embrace, to do the Splash of Light, you have to channel it for a 1.5 seconds. With this, like, you just throw out the Orb of Protection, you throw out the Beacon, and then you can lay down the Sacred Ground. Now, like, you have a place to fight, you're getting extra healing and sustaining, and then you can just kind of do whatever other weapon you want, except the weapon classes are kind of scuffed, because like, oh, intelligence, well, Life Staff being focused, like I go into Flail and Shield, I guess, or Void Gauntlet. In PvP scenarios, people will do like parry, so it's like, oh, you switch out and then like you parry and then you dash away and stuff. The focus tree just has like buff durations and blessed and fortify and all that other things, but you can get it from just the natural builds. And it does kind of limit you if you're like, oh, Life Staff, but Flail and Shield. I'm not like melee tank healing after I use my Life Staff stuff. And then Void Gauntlet. Void Gauntlet's a lot more fun going intelligence with like other weapons. Also, the perks are pretty good. You get Keen Beacon. I put that on the weapon. And then you get 11% critical chance. And that happens when it's healed, and you can switch off the weapon. So like if I put Keen Beacon somewhere, I'm in it, I get healed, that's 6 seconds, switch to Flamethrower for like 5 seconds, and then you can switch back to Life Staff, refresh the buff, and Beacon's pretty good. Accelerating Light Embrace, again, I'm not a big thing on haste, at least in PvE scenarios. Mending Protection, like this is cool if you can get it, but it's not needed. But yeah, like extra healing power is pretty nice if like you're low. Splash of Light, removing debuffs, that's going to be pretty good. Fortifying Sacred Ground, just giving Fortify is huge. People like putting this on their weapon, but I think it's fine on the gear, like 17%, 11% difference. There's going to be a lot of other Fortify sources, that's fine. Refreshing Divine Embrace, also nice, but I don't like how there's clutch healing. I'm not a big fan of the 50% effects and clutch healing because it is situational, but also like depending on if you're trying to do higher level content, you're like really trying to force through some content, then yeah, it's probably going to be very useful. So it depends on your situation, what you want to run there. Then like, oh, you just use a basic attack. Well, that's good for refreshing move and other cooldowns. And then you just get a little bit of Fortify. Then you fill out the trees, extra radius, beacon lasting longer. I don't care about haste, so you can skip that. You can find some other stuff. Buffs lasting 20% longer. Huh, that sounds really good. Also, a nice thing about shifting over to intelligence, again, is if your abilities are critting, then you're just getting all of your mana back, so mana regeneration doesn't really matter too much. And if you're playing with like other magic users, yeah, just make sure they have 200 intelligence and you don't have to give them increased regeneration. Blissful Touch is actually like one of the coolest things about the life staff in multiplayer scenarios, because like, oh, you just auto them in downtime and that can still do a little bit of healing, which is neat. Healing an ally below 50%. Revitalize is just extra refreshing move. Enchanted Justice, 120-second cooldown. That's just kind of stupid. This should have been balanced where it's just like, yeah, 4% weapon damage while in combat would be better. And then hitting a heavy attack, whatever, and then Sacred Protection. Also, when you heal, extend the duration of life staff buffs for 2 seconds. That's pretty good. So you want to aim for the Magnify and then just kind of put down whatever. But once you get the basic abilities and fill out the trees and go for Blissful Touch in multiplayer scenarios, yeah, that's all you need. So life staff, you don't even have to level it, and it's annoying to level because you're not like hitting things and getting full weapon experience some of the time. Now, as for the perks on your weapons, Keen Vicious. Like, you're doing a lot of critting, you want to crit more, and then you want your crit to do damage, and that's going to work on your abilities, and it's just going to feel really nice. And as a Fire Staff user, it's mostly casting. Like, maybe there is some auto attacks and maybe a little bit of refreshing move, but once you, like, really get to the point where, like, cooldowns are going crazy, and then you have refreshing Pillar of Fire, you actually don't really have too much downtime, so that's it. It's really self-explanatory. And then Retaliate, you keep getting hit, and then you just have, like, 24% damage permanently. Ignited Rune Glass, that just makes sense because you're already doing fire damage. You want Ignited Rune Glass on your armor and gear as well, and then Fire Harnessing, so just finding wacky amounts of bonus damage. So that means those burn ticks are going to be really nice. And then the extra fire damage, and that's also why the conversion on the life staff is what we're going for. Okay, we just talked about why an intelligence gem isn't good, but there is something to pay attention, because if this does get patched in the future, it means the guide still holds up, because it only makes sense. Like, oh, if it says base damage of the weapon, then it should change if you change the gem. So hopefully that actually gets fixed at some point. Until it does, we have Rally and Opportunist. Rally is going to be like long-range primary healer. If you're actually in combat, not really going to do too much for yourself at full health. Opportunist is probably the best one because you just have bonus healing while below 50% health. However, you're also switching off your weapon, so it doesn't really do too much unless you're switching back to your life staff while low to then put down your fields and try to top up again. And it's only a couple percent, but Opportunist probably the best. Maybe you can also have Retaliate. By having Retaliate, you keep the punishment stack as you switch your weapon. So you can actually use that to build up the Retaliate, go into another Retaliate weapon, and then you're just stacked and doing damage. So you have a couple of options, depending on your situation. Life Staff perks. So there's interesting mechanics and interactions with the Life Staff. You might think, oh, if I gain Empowered, does that empower my healing? It does not. However, you count as a target. So if you have Blessed or Savior on a life staff, it actually like increases for you, and then you have to make the call. Do I want to keep them topped up and healthy, or do I want to play like that clutch giga mega bursty healing once people start falling below 50%? That's also an interesting playstyle, which we'll have to get into on the individual guide, where it's like, yeah, just auto them, oh no, they're low, and then you just like blast the entire team back up to full. So, and then Keen Beacon, that's the crit. You get more crit chance on that. I went into Photoshop and made kind of like an ideal staff where like Purifying Breeze, also good. Refreshing move instead of Keen Empowered, good, and then Blessed versus Savior. Also, a lot of this game is making compromises because you don't have a 100k for complete Bis. So if you get Keen Beacon on some gloves, take it, and if Purifying Breeze Blessed ends up on your life staff and you also have Refreshing Move, take that as well. Divine's really good, like incoming healing effects. My builds revolve around Blood Drinker, but the cool thing is, like, oh, without Blood Drinker, you now have baked-in healing. Also, that means you can get the ring that has healing on it. Sacred Purifying on a ring. When you remove a debuff, 20% weapon damage, and then the outgoing healing efficiency getting added in. That's going to be more like PvE, multiplayer. If you don't have Blood Drinker, that also works just fine. I would like to have Lifesteal, just that way my Fire Staff gets something, but that's a thing. And oh, it's a very expensive this ring, isn't it? And also it depends on, like, actually the focus is decent here, because it might just be enough to tick you into 50 focus for the extra healing efficiency. Now, you might have to be careful depending on your life staff. Like, oh, a life staff with intelligence, not terrible. Also, maybe worth selling if it has good perks and you want to make some money. And then, like, Constitution on jewelry is just better because then it slots into everything, even alternative builds. So that's going to be it for gear. And then, like, yeah, regenerating, healthy and refreshing toast and all that. You're not really drinking mana potions once you hit 200 intelligence. But I guess in the earlier game, when you're trying to stack up, you can respec at any time. So if it's like, oh, I'm running out of mana, then you can put in points into some kind of mana refreshing and then just kind of build up or go for healthy toast there. And that's going to be it for gear, but I also want to show, like, the ability rotations and stuff, so don't click off the video just yet. Watch time is very important. So you want Enchanted Ward, you want your empowering perks and all that fun stuff, fire harnessing where you can find it. I don't think refreshing really matters, but I just kind of end up with it on gear because, like, oh, these pants are busted. And there's also benefits to these weird kind of builds, because if this was focus, I don't even want to think how much that would have cost for, like, oh, we have life staff bis, but if you're doing intelligence, yeah, you actually can, like, find some sneaky little cross builds inside of it. Then harnessing, conditioning, enchanted ward, take what you can get kind of thing. But we're looking pretty strong. Okay, because of the scuff from earlier, I'm going to be doing a pull with my current build now that we've, like, fixed the intelligence issue. But then I'm going to cut to the original recording that had the intelligence, and it still shows, like, the differences you can do in this build. No focus, whatever. I got some healing and utility. Maybe some people still like me for it. And then I'm doing a lot more damage, just like intelligence, fire staff based. But with this, it's more healing, sustain, and if it gives you a lot more reliability, that's also something else you can go for. So we put down the ground, we hit them, we pop this. Oh, wow, yeah, like, initial thing is, wait a second, I'm not dying anymore, which is kind of big. So then you can hit the incinerate, you can do the flamethrower. Damage is a little less, but I mean, the time to kill is almost the same. Where after 2 ability rotations, you're good. So, like, Sacred Ground, get the orb out there, cool, we're inside of it, and then you go Pillar of Fire, a little bit of Flamethrower. Once you get that Smolder built up, boom, you throw down the ring, another Fire, and then more Flamethrower, and then you just kind of, like, finish them off on the Flamethrower, and then however the cooldowns go from there, because you can get staggered out of Flamethrower, but still hurts, still burns, still melts things. A little bit less damage, but more effective healing, which is good for solo as well. To be honest, I died during one of the pools while doing a recording for the next segment. This actually ain't too bad. Okay, let's do a pool to show off how all of this stuff works. First note for the life staff, you actually need to hit enemies with auto attacks or abilities that do damage, or else you just don't get weapon experience for it. Even if you're standing in your own sacred ground, but you swap to another weapon and finish off an enemy, you don't get credit for that sacred ground. So you mostly need to, like, get weapon experience through groups and stuff. It's kind of weird. You want to get as much distance between the pack and you as possible, because you're not supposed to be a melee class, and we're kind of running this like a melee class. So you set up your sacred ground, like, ahead. You can hit the stuff, hopefully on enemies, so they pull it to you on the beacon, because you want to be in there for the crit. Then you open up with Pillar Fire. You try to get some Flamethrower down, gives you lifesteal, put some more Smolder. That's when you hit the Incinerate. Pillar Fires back up, another Flamethrower, and you just cleared out a lot of stuff and did pretty crazy damage. We also don't even have, like, the full setup here, so it gets even crazier if you pop everyone's Smolder, do the AoE bursting and all that. If you're kind of low, then that's when you just reset. Alright, back in the Sacred Ground, hit this, now we have the crit, hit that, we can go back into Pillar, Flamethrower, Incinerate, and then just kind of blow up everything we need. Those guys are high enough. we don't need to worry about them. We can just hit them later. Enemies with the shields and the conscripted hounds that spawn, you don't have to like always finish them off. You just take out most of the pack and then continue whatever you're farming. And then you just kind of run through it. So yeah, this is more risky, and depending on the damage, like, well, why am I just not running Void Blade and just inside of everything doing millions of damage? It gives you that extra luxury. Also, yeah, like, you don't want to get hit into a wall. Fortunately, you can do some other stuff, and if you don't immediately die, you can fight your way out of it. Really good to have the stone form as well. Also, here's what I like about Orb and Beacon. They're just casts that you just throw them out. You don't have to like ground target them or anything. So as long as you hit Beacon at your feet, you can stay in here and fight, you're getting a lot of benefit. Or if you hit an enemy, it sticks the enemy and then they run up onto you. That's also going to give you the benefit you're looking for. That's why you want to just kind of like set that up first and then throw your abilities. Like, you can always just cast at your feet. It works just fine. Switch in and then do your Pillar of Fire. Get a little flamethrower to make sure everyone's all burned up. Incinerate them. Pillar of Fire's back up, and then you can use that. Also, by going Flamethrower into Incinerate, you cancel your Flamethrower automatically, so you don't have to like double press or anything, and it also puts your Flamethrower on the auto cooldown once you have that unlocked. So yeah, it's actually like really nice. With like, I just do that, and then I can naturally cast all my abilities again. We're back into Flamethrower. Feels good. Now, if you watch my other guides, it's like, okay, but why not just run Great Sword or Void Gauntlet or Flail and do the same pulls and be safer and not have to worry about dying or taking too much damage? Why am I even running Life Staff? Because like the healing and stuff from Life Staff is nothing, especially once you get Blood Drinker, but it's good for like that early and mid game, being a part of a group. And then also before you get Blood Drinker, yeah, as you're clearing out an area, take smaller pulls. Top yourself off. Chill. Okay, I was low. Now I'm fine. I ate some food. I did my buffs. We can get back in there and then do like crazy Fire Staff damage and get that clear out. Also, it's going to be really nice for expeditions. It's not like this build is, hey, this is secretly the best build in the game and that's why you want to be running it. No, there's going to be better builds, and there's no single one best build in the game. The benefit of this is that it's kind of cool that you get to do the double staff build that kind of doesn't really seem like the game is geared for it. And the problem is, if you try to run full focus, you're just going to go, why am I not always Void Gauntlet or Flail and Shield anyways? Like, the Life Staff feels very unappealing, but it is kind of like that extra benefit of just being a healer, that people want healers for their expedition groups, and then you get to convert into that 5th DPS and feel pretty good about contributing in many other ways. And then once those abilities come down, it kind of looks like people in the group are low. All right, drop everything and go again. That could also maybe be like an extra benefit into the savior tree, or like anything that does below 50% procs. And it also gives you a meaningful way to play Fire Staff that isn't just Fire Staff. And if you're trying to be like group focused, long range, then that's when you can switch it up for your skills and just go for like, okay, Meteor Shower, Fireball, do all that cool stuff from long range. Maybe even Pillar of Fire. Maybe the Flamethrower is like a get off me, because like, oh, if something comes towards you, you're not immediately dead as the healer. You can actually just kind of fight off everything for yourself, or wait until your DPS comes over and help you. So it's mostly about making people that want to play Fire Staff more appealing as a healer, and then making healing a bit more fun so you can get engaged with group content and then contribute and then have a better time. Not only for expeditions, but also for just kind of clearing things out, running through elite areas, doing camps with other people that are like slightly too high level, or any kind of farming. Like, okay, now you feel competent, now you feel good, now you're helping people out, and you can also take care of yourself and do tons of damage. And just kind of showing the options that are available by doing quirky little things inside the game, like the gem socketing and then switching over to intelligence. So guys, enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.